The shattered vows. Olivia Bennett traced her finger along the edge of the ultrasound photo, the black and white image blurring as tears welled in her eyes. The soft glow of her car's dashboard illuminated her face as she sat paralyzed in the parking lot of La Maison, the upscale French restaurant where she and Daniel had celebrated their 5th anniversary just 3 months ago. She hadn't planned to follow him tonight. The decision came after weeks of mounting evidence, late nights at the office, mysterious text messages that made him smile when he thought she wasn't looking, and the lingering scent of unfamiliar perfume on his shirts. But it was the hotel key card that fell from his pocket this morning that finally pushed her over the edge. Through the restaurant's large windows, she could see them clearly, Daniel and Jessica from the marketing department, sitting at a corner table, their hands intertwined across the white tablecloth. Daniel leaned forward, brushing a strand of hair from Jessica's face with an intimacy that knocked the air from Olivia's lungs. 7 years, she whispered to herself, her wedding ring catching the light as her hand instinctively moved to her swollen belly. 7 years together and 4 months into her pregnancy, Daniel had chosen someone else. The drive home passed in a blur. Olivia moved through their modern suburban house like a ghost, touching familiar objects that suddenly felt foreign. The framed wedding photo on the mantel, the blueprints for the nursery she'd designed herself, the collection of antique teacups Daniel had given her every anniversary, each representing a year of their marriage. She picked up the latest edition, a delicate porcelain cup with hand-painted violets. With a swift motion, she hurled it against the wall, watching it shatter into dozens of tiny fragments. The sound was oddly satisfying, but the relief was momentary. Olivia sank to the floor, her back against the kitchen island, and allowed herself exactly 10 minutes to fall apart. When the timer on her phone beeped, she wiped her tears, stood up and swept the broken pieces into a dustpan. The metaphor wasn't lost on her. Like those scattered fragments, her marriage had been irreparably broken. But unlike the teacup, she refused to remain shattered. "This isn't just about me anymore," she said aloud, her hand cradling her belly. The baby kicked in response, a gentle flutter that strengthened her resolve. That night, while Daniel slept beside her, he'd returned home late with a story about client drinks. Olivia stared at the ceiling, formulating a plan. Daniel Bennett, senior partner at Whitehall & Associates, prided himself on his reputation. His carefully cultivated image as a devoted husband and soon-to-be father was as important to his career as his law degree from Yale. It was this image that Olivia would target. The next morning, she greeted him with coffee and a smile, the perfect picture of an adoring wife. If Daniel noticed the coolness in her eyes, he didn't show it. "You're home early tonight, right?" she asked, her voice steady despite the acid churning in her stomach. "The contractor is coming to finalize the nursery plans." Daniel kissed her forehead absently. "I'll try, sweetheart, but you know how it is. We're in the middle of the Westridge merger." "Of course," she replied, watching him adjust his tie, the burgundy one Jessica had complimented last month at the office Christmas party. The merger. How could I forget? After he left, Olivia called in sick to her architecture firm for the first time in 3 years. Then she made 2 important appointments, one with her doctor to ensure the stress wasn't affecting the baby, and another with Eleanor Winters, the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city. In the quiet of their home office, Olivia created a new email account and began documenting everything. Dates of late nights, screenshots of their shared credit card statements showing dinner charges when he claimed to be working. She even photographed the hotel key card before placing it back in his suit pocket exactly as she'd found it. When her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel explaining he'd be late again, Olivia felt strangely calm. The message included an attachment, a sonogram, from their last appointment with the words, "Thinking of my girls today." The gesture that would have once warmed her heart now fueled her determination. "Don't worry, little one," Olivia whispered to her unborn daughter. "We're going to be just fine without him." As evening approached, she didn't wait up as usual. Instead, she sat at her drafting table, sketching plans for a small but elegant home by the lake, a place for new beginnings. Daniel's betrayal had shattered the life she thought they were building. But from those ruins, Olivia would construct something stronger, something entirely her own. The architect in her knew that sometimes the most beautiful structures arose from complete demolition, and demolish Daniel Bennett she would. methodically, precisely, and without mercy. The silent collector, Olivia's sleek black heels clicked against the marble floor of the law firm as she followed Eleanor Winters into a private conference room. 3 weeks had passed since that night at La Maison, and with each passing day, Olivia's strategy had grown more refined. "You've done impressive work," Eleanor commented, reviewing the folder Olivia had brought. Inside was a meticulous record of Daniel's indiscretions. Time-stamped photos, credit card statements, even a voice recording from when she'd accidentally called his phone during what he claimed was a client meeting. "I learned from the best," Olivia replied, adjusting her blazer over her growing baby bump. "Daniel always says attention to detail wins cases." Eleanor's lips curved into a cold smile. "In my experience, scorned spouses usually lead with emotion. You're different." "I'm an architect," Olivia said simply. "I know that proper planning prevents poor performance." After reviewing the divorce strategy, Olivia headed to her next appointment. Not with her obstetrician, but with Thomas Reed, the managing partner at Whitehall & Associates and Daniel's boss. "Mrs. Bennett, what a pleasure," Thomas greeted her, rising from behind his desk. "Daniel mentioned you were redesigning your home office. I've been thinking about doing the same." "That's exactly why I'm here," Olivia replied with practiced ease. "I thought I'd offer my services as a thank you for all the firm has done for our family." Over the next hour, Olivia charmed Thomas while subtly gathering information about the upcoming partner selection process. Daniel was a front-runner, it seemed, with the final decision to be announced at the firm's annual gala in 3 weeks. "We've reserved a table for you and Daniel." "Of course," Thomas mentioned as she was leaving. "It's an important night for the firm, and potentially for your husband's career." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Olivia assured him, her smile never reaching her eyes. Back in her car, she added this information to her notes. The timing couldn't be more perfect. That evening, while preparing dinner, Olivia received a text from an unknown number. It contained a photo of Daniel and Jessica entering a hotel with a message. "Thought you should know." "I'm sorry." Olivia's hands trembled slightly, but she replied with a simple "thank you." "Who is this?" "Rebecca from accounting. Jessica's been flaunting their relationship around the office. Not everyone approves, an unexpected ally." Olivia saved the contact and the photo before deleting the conversation from her phone. When Daniel arrived home, late again, Olivia greeted him with a kiss on the cheek. "How was your day?" she asked, serving the roast chicken he favored. "Exhausting," he sighed, loosening his tie. "The Westridge merger is becoming complicated." "I ran into Thomas Reed today," Olivia mentioned casually. He seemed optimistic about the partner announcement. Daniel's head snapped up. "You saw Thomas?" "Where?" "At his office. I'm helping redesign his home workspace." She took a sip of water. He mentioned the gala. "Sounds like an important night." Daniel relaxed visibly. "It is. Everything we've worked for, Liv, for our future." She placed her hand on her belly. "Our future is important to me, too." Over the next 2 weeks, Olivia expanded her network of unwitting informants. A coffee date with a paralegal from Daniel's firm yielded gossip about Jessica's previous workplace affairs. A chance meeting with Daniel's secretary, orchestrated by Olivia, provided insights about blocked calendar appointments that coincided with hotel charges. Each piece of information was another nail in the coffin she was building for her marriage. Meanwhile, Olivia maintained her performance as the supportive wife. She selected a form-fitting midnight blue gown for the gala that showcased her pregnancy while exuding elegance. She accompanied Daniel to a prenatal appointment where he proudly told the doctor about the nursery plans Olivia had secretly modified to suit a single parent. On a rainy Tuesday, while Daniel was supposedly in court, Olivia drove to a small cafe across town. Jessica was already there, nervously fidgeting with her napkin. "Thank you for meeting me," Olivia said, sliding into the booth. Jessica's eyes widened. I thought this was about a design consultation." "Your text—" "Let's not waste time with pretenses," Olivia interrupted, her voice calm despite the storm raging within. "You're sleeping with my husband." Jessica's face paled. "Olivia, I can explain. Daniel said your marriage was essentially over, that you were only staying together for appearance's sake until after the partner announcement." Olivia's expression remained impassive, though each word felt like a blade. "Did he mention our baby? Or the nursery we painted last month? Or perhaps the anniversary dinner where he promised to renew our vows next year?" Jessica's eyes filled with tears. He said the pregnancy was unexpected, that you trapped him. Stop. Olivia raised a hand. I'm not here for explanations or apologies. I simply wanted to see the woman my husband deemed worth destroying our family for. She stood, smoothing her dress. Enjoy him while it lasts. The partner announcement is in 4 days. As she walked away, Olivia could feel Jessica's stare burning into her back. The confrontation hadn't been in her original plan, but it added a crucial element of unpredictability. Now Jessica was a wild card, and wild cards had a way of disrupting carefully constructed facades. That night, Olivia finalized the last details of her plan. She transferred half of their joint savings into a separate account Eleanor had helped her establish. She backed up all her evidence to a secure cloud server, and she selected the exact moment at the gala when everything would come crashing down. As Daniel slept beside her, Olivia gazed at the ceiling, one hand resting protectively on her belly. Almost there. Little one, she whispered. Soon we start fresh. In the morning, she would begin the final phase of her plan, what Eleanor had dubbed the reckoning. By this time next week, Daniel Bennett would understand exactly what he had lost, and what his betrayal had cost him. Olivia closed her eyes, and for the first time in weeks, she slept peacefully. The reckoning, the Whitehall and Associates annual gala, transformed the grand ballroom of the Bellevue Hotel into a sea of elegance and ambition. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables draped in white linen, while partners and associates mingled with clients and spouses, champagne flowing as freely as the conversation. Olivia stood at the entrance, her midnight blue gown shimmering under the lights, her makeup flawless, concealing the sleepless nights and silent tears of the past month. You look stunning, Daniel whispered, his hand possessively at the small of her back. Everyone's watching us, isn't that the point? Olivia replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Tonight is about appearances, after all. Daniel's expression flickered with confusion before he guided her toward Thomas Reed and the other senior partners. Olivia played her role perfectly, the proud, supportive wife of a rising legal star, laughing at the right moments, asking thoughtful questions about cases she'd researched specifically for this night. Daniel's lucky to have you, Thomas commented during dinner. Not every spouse understands the demands of this profession. Oh, I understand demands very well, Olivia responded, noting Jessica's conspicuous absence from the marketing department's table. And sacrifices. As dessert was served, Thomas stood to begin the evening's announcements. Olivia excused herself, squeezing Daniel's shoulder in what appeared to be encouragement, but was actually her signal to Rebecca from accounting, who nodded slightly from across the room. In the ladies' room, Olivia retrieved her phone and sent a pre-composed email to the entire senior partnership, Thomas Reed's wife and selected members of the firm. The subject line read simply, "What Daniel Bennett sacrifices for success." She returned just as Thomas was praising the firm's accomplishments for the year, her heart pounding, but her exterior calm. Daniel reached for her hand under the table, and she allowed him this final moment of ignorance. And now the moment we've all been waiting for, Thomas announced. After careful consideration, I'm pleased to announce that our newest partner at Whitehall and Associates is... The synchronized ping of multiple phones interrupted him. Olivia watched as confusion spread across faces throughout the ballroom, followed by furtive glances toward their table as people opened her email. Thomas frowned at his phone, then looked up, his expression hardening as his gaze landed on Daniel. Daniel Bennett, a word please. Daniel rose, baffled, then froze as he glanced at his own phone. His face drained of color as he scrolled through the damning evidence, photos, hotel receipts, text messages between him and Jessica that Olivia had obtained through Rebecca, and finally a formal statement from Jessica herself, detailing their affair. Olivia, he whispered, turning to her with panic in his eyes. What have you done? She stood slowly, one hand cradling her belly. I've simply revealed who you truly are, Daniel. To everyone who matters. The room had fallen silent, all pretense of normalcy abandoned as the drama unfolded. Eleanor Winters appeared at Olivia's side, seemingly materializing from nowhere. Mrs. Bennett, your car is waiting, Eleanor announced loud enough for nearby tables to hear, unless Mr. Bennett would prefer to discuss the terms of your divorce settlement here. Daniel's face contorted with rage and humiliation. You calculated this. You planned everything. I learned from you, Olivia replied evenly. You always said timing is everything in closing arguments. As she walked away, head held high despite the whispers erupting around them, Thomas Reed approached Daniel, his expression thunderous. The partnership announcement forgotten in the wake of the scandal. Outside, the cool night air filled Olivia's lungs as she exhaled 7 years of marriage and 1 month of betrayal. Her phone buzzed with messages, some supportive, others shocked, but she ignored them all, focusing instead on the road ahead as her driver navigated toward the small lakeside property she had purchased 3 days ago. By morning, news of the scandal had spread throughout the legal community. Daniel's partnership hopes were shattered, his reputation in tatters. Jessica had tendered her resignation, and Olivia had changed the locks on their house, after removing everything that mattered to her. 2 months later, Olivia sat on the deck of her new home, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of orange and purple. The divorce had been finalized with terms heavily in her favor. Thanks to Eleanor's skill and Daniel's desire to avoid further public humiliation, the baby kicked, stronger now, as if approving of the peace they had found. Olivia had named her architecture firm Phoenix Designs, specializing in spaces for new beginnings. Already she had clients, some drawn by her talent, others by her story, which had taken on an almost mythical quality among women who had suffered similar betrayals. Her phone rang, displaying Eleanor's number. "He's asking about visitation rights," the attorney informed her. "And he's been sober for 30 days. Olivia considered this. Despite everything, the child she carried deserved to know her father, flawed as he was. Limited supervised visits after she's born, Olivia decided. He needs to prove himself. After ending the call, she returned to sketching plans for the nursery, not the one she and Daniel had planned, but something entirely her own. The design incorporated elements of strength and growth, with space for whatever the future might hold. As darkness settled over the lake, Olivia felt her daughter move again. "We're going to be okay," she promised, not just to her unborn child, but to herself. Better than okay. The vengeance had been swift and complete, but it wasn't the end of her story, merely the beginning of a new chapter. One where she, not Daniel Bennett, held the pen. In the distance, thunder rumbled as storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Olivia didn't flinch or hurry inside. After weathering the tempest of betrayal, no storm could frighten her now. Phoenix rising 6 months after the gala that changed everything. Olivia cradled her newborn daughter in the sunlit nursery of her lakeside home. Charlotte Elise Bennett, named for Olivia's grandmother, a woman of remarkable resilience, had her mother's dark curls and determined gaze. "You're perfect," Olivia whispered, tracing a finger along the baby's cheek. The past months had transformed her in ways she never anticipated, stripping away the woman who had defined herself through Daniel's expectations and revealing someone stronger, sharper, and surprisingly more compassionate. A knock at the front door interrupted their moment. Eleanor stood on the porch looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "He's here," the attorney said simply. Olivia nodded, having prepared herself for this moment since agreeing to Daniel's first supervised visit. She settled Charlotte in her bassinet before walking to the living room, where Daniel waited, a wrapped package in his trembling hands. He looked different, thinner, with shadows under his eyes and silver threading through his once immaculate dark hair. Humiliation and consequences had aged him. "Thank you for allowing this," he said, his voice lacking its former confidence. Olivia maintained a careful distance. "This isn't for you, Daniel. It's for her." The social worker Eleanor had arranged sat quietly in the corner, observing as Daniel approached the bassinet. His composure broke at the sight of his daughter, tears streaming down his face. "She's beautiful," he managed. "She looks like you." "Fortunately," Olivia replied, though without the bitterness that would have colored such a remark months ago. The visit proceeded with awkward formality, Daniel carefully holding Charlotte while sharing updates on his life. The partnership had gone to another associate. He'd moved to a smaller firm across town. He was seeing a therapist. He'd ended things with Jessica the night of the gala. "I've been sober for 5 months now," he added. "Not that it excuses anything." That night, as Charlotte slept peacefully in her crib, Olivia added the final touches to designs for a community center for women rebuilding their lives after betrayal or abuse. It would be her most ambitious project yet, funded partly by the sale of the house and partly by investors who believed in her vision. The plans featured open spaces filled with light, gardens for healing, and structural elements that symbolize strength emerging from brokenness. At the entrance, etched in stone, would be the words that had become her mantra: "From ashes, strength." As Olivia worked, she realized that her story had evolved beyond revenge. The reckoning had been necessary. Daniel needed to face consequences for his betrayal. But it was only the beginning of a journey that was increasingly about creation rather than destruction. Charlotte stirred, and Olivia went to her, lifting the drowsy infant against her chest. "We're building something important," she whispered, swaying gently. "Something that will help others find their way through the darkness." Outside, the first light of dawn illuminated the lake, promising a new day and all the possibilities it held. Full circle. 3 years after the night that had altered the trajectory of her life, Olivia stood at the podium in the central courtyard of Phoenix House, the community center that had grown from the ashes of her marriage. Around her, donors and supporters gathered for the official opening, while residents, women rebuilding their lives after various forms of betrayal, watched with cautious hope from the sidelines. Charlotte, now a spirited toddler with bouncing curls and her mother's determination, played nearby under the watchful eye of Eleanor, who had become an unlikely but steadfast friend. "Phoenix House exists because I learned that transforming pain into purpose is the truest form of healing," Olivia began, her voice steady. 3 years ago, I thought vengeance would be enough. I was wrong. It was only the beginning." As she spoke, Olivia noticed a familiar figure at the back of the crowd. Daniel stood quietly, respectfully maintaining his distance. Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them could have predicted. Not friendship exactly, but a careful peace built around their shared love for Charlotte. The supervised visits had eventually given way to regular weekends. Daniel had remained sober, had found purpose in volunteer legal work for domestic abuse survivors, and had, against all odds, earned back a small measure of Olivia's respect. After the ceremony, while Charlotte showed her father the playroom she had helped design, "I picked the colors, Daddy," and Thomas Reed approached Olivia with his wife Patricia. "Remarkable what you've built here," Thomas commented, surveying the modern structure with its symbolic phoenix motif incorporated subtly throughout. A far cry from that night at the gala. Patricia squeezed Olivia's hand. "Thank you for exposing Daniel's behavior." Thomas had been considering similar indiscretions. Seeing those consequences up close changed his perspective. Olivia absorbed this unexpected revelation with grace. Sometimes the most painful experiences yield the most important growth. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Olivia found herself alone with Daniel in the meditation garden she had designed with elements of water and stone. "I never thanked you," she said quietly. Daniel looked startled. "For what?" "I destroyed our marriage. I hurt you beyond measure." "Not for that," Olivia clarified. "For showing me who I could be when everything was taken away." She gestured to the complex around them. "This wouldn't exist if you hadn't betrayed me." Daniel was silent for a long moment. "I'm still sorry," he finally said. "Every day." "I know." Olivia studied him, the man she had once loved enough to plan a lifetime with, then hated enough to methodically ruin. Now she felt neither love nor hate, but something approaching compassion. "Charlotte needs you to be the best version of yourself." "And you?" Daniel asked. "What do you need?" Olivia considered the question. 3 years ago, she had needed vengeance. 2 years ago, independence. 1 year ago, purpose. Now, I need this work, she answered honestly. And peace with our past. As if on cue, Charlotte ran into the garden, launching herself into Olivia's arms with the boundless energy of childhood. "Mommy, can we show Daddy my new room at home?" Olivia caught Daniel's questioning look. She had been reluctant to allow him into the sanctuary of their lakeside home, maintaining firm boundaries between their co-parenting relationship and her personal space. "Actually," she said, surprising herself, "that sounds like a good idea, just for a little while." That evening, as Charlotte proudly gave Daniel a tour of her room with its star-patterned ceiling and bookshelf shaped like a tree, Olivia watched from the doorway, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The reckoning had been necessary, a catalyst for change and consequences. But the true transformation had come in its aftermath, in the rebuilding that followed destruction. After Daniel left and Charlotte was tucked into bed, Olivia sat on her deck overlooking the lake, reviewing plans for Phoenix Design's newest project, a collaboration with a national organization to create similar community centers in cities across the country. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. She opened it to find a photo of the original Phoenix House blueprint with a simple caption, "From the woman whose husband you exposed last year at the Edison firm. Thank you for starting the domino effect that saved my life." Olivia smiled, realizing her act of vengeance had rippled outward in ways she never imagined. What began as one woman's calculated response to betrayal had evolved into a movement of women refusing to be defined by the actions of others. As the stars reflected on the lake's surface, Olivia felt a sense of completion. The circle that began with betrayal had transformed into something larger and more meaningful. Not just her personal healing, but a contribution to the healing of others. Charlotte would grow up knowing both sides of her mother's story. The architect who had meticulously planned the destruction of her husband's false image, and the visionary who had built something enduring from the rubble. Olivia closed her design portfolio and breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the cool night air. The reckoning was long past. The rebuilding was well underway, and the future, with its infinite possibilities, stretched before her like the vast sky above the lake. Limitless, luminous, and finally, truly her own.